You walk into the room and think you have time. You think that attraction, respect, and desire will be negotiated slowly, that the first impressions are just surface ripples. But you are wrong. The clock starts the second you cross the threshold, and the countdown is merciless. In less than a single minute before you've even realized the game has begun, the verdict is already being written. 60 seconds. That's all it takes. In that brief span, your entire value as a man is weighed, measured, and, most often, dismissed. Not with words, not with open rejection, but with subtle cues. A flicker of contempt in her eyes, a smile that never quite reaches sincerity, the silent filing of your presence into the category of forgettable. This is the forbidden truth. Women decide before you even speak. They don't admit it, they don't put it into words, but the machinery is already working, already grinding through its evolutionary algorithm. Think of it like a courtroom where your presence is on trial. You expect a long process, lawyers and arguments, the slow drip of evidence, but instead the judge slams the gavel within a minute. Case closed, appeal denied. And the irony is cruel. Most men never even realize they lost. They keep talking, keep explaining, keep trying to prove themselves, not knowing the decision was made long before their words even landed. That first minute is not neutral. It is not casual. It is the battlefield where all future interactions are framed. Walk in with weakness, and every word afterward only confirms the sentence. Walk in uncertain, and no amount of explanation can erase the impression. Your smile, your posture, your silence or your scramble, it all paints the story before you think you've even begun. Most men stumble here. They think they can compensate with charm later, that they can repair with devotion, with gifts, with confessions. But by then, the foundation is already rotten. They've already been catalogued as ordinary, controllable, or disposable, and nothing corrodes desire faster than predictability, than the aura of a man who has already been sized up and dismissed. These are the seconds that decide everything. The glance that brands you, the posture that marks you, the hesitation that seals your fate. It is the most ruthless economy of all, because you don't get to negotiate terms. You either radiate something she cannot cage, or you vanish into the category of men she forgets before the glass is empty. The cruelest part. The system is silent. No one tells you this rule. No one trains you for the first 60 seconds. You're told to be yourself, to relax, to make her laugh. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking, and the machinery of instinct and social conditioning is making its judgment. And here is the secret few dare to say, in those first 60 seconds, women don't search for kindness or devotion or words. They search for the signal of a man who cannot be controlled. The aura of unpredictability, the shadow of danger, the weight of self-possession. Most men fail because they try to impress with explanations instead of presence. They think words will buy them time, when in truth silence, backed by composure, decides more than 1,000 arguments ever will. The first minute is not an introduction, it is the execution, and most men are already dead before they realize they were on trial. Why does the first minute hold such brutal weight? To answer that, you have to strip away the romance and stare directly into the machinery of human psychology and biology. Attraction is not a slow negotiation. It is a survival mechanism coded by evolution, sharpened by culture, and executed in milliseconds. Evolutionary psychology tells us that women, more than men, evolved as expert evaluators. Their survival, and the survival of their offspring, depended on their ability to detect strength, stability, and unpredictability in a man almost instantly. In tribal times, hesitation could mean death. A woman who misjudged a man's ability to lead, to protect, or to inspire fear in rivals risked everything. That ancient radar still operates today beneath the surface of Tinder swipes, coffee shop small talk, or casual introductions. The mind believes it is taking time to decide. In truth, the judgment was already fired off within seconds. Neuroscience adds a layer of cruelty. Studies on thin slicing show that humans make highly accurate social judgments in less than a minute. Judgments about competence, dominance, and trustworthiness. These snap evaluations are not conscious. They bypass rational analysis and anchor themselves in the emotional brain, particularly the amygdala. Once anchored, later impressions are filtered through that initial bias. If you fail the first 60 seconds, the brain does not reset. Everything afterward is interpreted as confirmation of the initial verdict. This is called confirmation bias, and it is relentless. Social psychology twists the knife further. Status hierarchies are established instantly in groups. The moment a new figure enters the social space, people unconsciously rank him, above or below, dominant or submissive, magnetic or invisible. Women, attuned to these dynamics, sense them at a visceral level. They don't consciously think, this man is beneath the frame. They simply feel repulsion, or worse, indifference. And indifference is the true graveyard, because it offers no ladder to climb back up. Culture amplifies this ancient algorithm. Modern men are told to impress with words, humor, and over-explanation. They are told to prove their value by pouring out devotion and demonstrating compliance. But in the first 60 seconds, words mean nothing. What decides everything is the silent broadcast of presence, posture, stillness, the ability to withhold rather than chase. The more a man scrambles to be liked, the more he signals he can be controlled. And once a woman feels control, desire dies. This is the paradox. The first minute decides, but not in the way most men think. It does not decide based on what you say. It decides based on what you radiate before you say anything at all. Do you carry yourself as if approval is irrelevant, as if your frame is immovable? Or do you leak desperation, the subtle lean-in of a man begging to be chosen? The psychology is merciless, but also liberating, because once you understand it, you see that survival in the first 60 seconds is not about performance, it is about subtraction. Not adding words, but removing the instinct to explain. Not rushing to impress, but letting the silence expand. The men who survive the opening trial are not the loudest, nor the most decorated, nor the most accommodating. They are the ones who enter as if they have already been chosen by life itself. And here lies the system's forbidden rule. She is not searching for proof in the first minute. She is searching for a signal she cannot bend. If she senses control, you are lost. If she senses resistance, unyielding presence, you have already won. The opening minute is not random. It is governed by hidden mechanisms, ancient psychological and cultural, that decide whether a man rises or collapses before he even realizes the test has begun. Here are the 5 invisible forces that dominate the battlefield of the first 60 seconds. 1. The presence signal. Before you speak, your body already speaks. Posture, eye movement, the rhythm of your breathing. These micro-signals tell her whether you stand in your own frame or bend to hers. Presence is not loud. It is not theatrical. It is calm stillness that radiates stability. Example, a man who enters a room slowly, shoulders relaxed, gaze steady. He does not fidget, does not over-smile, does not shrink. He projects, I am enough as I am. Presence is the first and strongest signal. If you lack it, words will never save you. 2. The control test. In the first minute, she unconsciously probes for control. This can be as subtle as a question asked too quickly, a playful interruption, or a demand for unnecessary reassurance. Men who rush to answer, who scramble to satisfy, instantly reveal their leash. Example, she says, "So what do you do?" and you unload your entire resume in nervous detail. Control lost. Contrast that with the man who smiles, pauses, and replies on his own time. His silence announces, "You don't direct my tempo." That refusal to be rushed is magnetic. 3. The status scan. Human groups are wired to establish hierarchy instantly, and women pick up on this radar with brutal accuracy. The moment you step into a space, your status is measured, not by money, not by possessions, but by how others respond to you. Do men greet you with respect? Do you occupy space without apology? Do you broadcast the subtle aura of being noticed without trying? Example, a man enters a gathering, exchanges minimal words, but others adjust their body language around him, giving space, showing acknowledgement. She sees this, and her biology translates it. Value. 4. The unpredictability factor. Predictability is death in attraction. When your behavior is scripted, when your reactions are automatic, you are already filed under safe, controllable, forgettable. The first minute decides whether you spark curiosity or bore her into indifference. Example, most men laugh too quickly at her joke, agree instantly, or rush to flatter. She knows this pattern, but the man who pauses, smirks, and lets silence hang before choosing a response, he disrupts expectation. That disruption is power because it keeps her guessing. Curiosity is desire's oxygen. 5. The commitment leak. Desperation is visible long before words reveal it. Men often radiate neediness in the smallest gestures, leaning in too far, speaking too fast, over-investing emotionally in a casual exchange. These leaks scream commitment before attraction has even been established. Example, she glances at her phone and he immediately changes his energy, fearing her disinterest. His frame collapses in seconds. Contrast that with the man who notices but remains unfazed, anchored in himself. By not leaking premature commitment, he communicates abundance. I don't need this moment to define me. And that absence of need is magnetic. Together, these 5 mechanisms explain why most men lose before they've begun. They fail to broadcast presence. They surrender control. They stumble in the hierarchy. They bore with predictability. They leak commitment. And once the first 60 seconds have been lost, the rest of the interaction is merely a slow confirmation of defeat. You now know the hidden machinery, but awareness alone does not protect you. Survival requires discipline, rules that strip away weakness and replace it with deliberate power. These are the 5 survival rules, each mapped directly to the mechanisms that decide the first 60 seconds. Survival Rule 1. Anchor your presence counter to the presence signal. Most men try to create presence by speaking louder, moving faster, exaggerating gestures. Wrong. Presence is subtraction, not addition. The rule is simple. Slow down everything. Walk into the room with a pace slightly below the rhythm of others. Speak after a pause, not before. Breathe deeply with visible calm. Practical tactic. Practice entry drills. Walk into a room, stand still for 3 seconds before moving. It feels unnatural at first, but it trains your nervous system to radiate stability. You don't shout presence, you embody it. Survival Rule 2. Break the control hook counter to the control test. When she probes, asking loaded questions, interrupting testing, most men take the bait instantly. To survive, you must flip the frame. Practical tactic, never answer at her tempo. Insert a deliberate pause before every reply. A 2-second silence feels like an eternity to someone trying to control the rhythm. That silence destabilizes her frame and forces her to adapt to yours. If the question is designed to trap you, answer with humor or deflection. Example, so, what do you do? Depends who's asking. You feed curiosity, not control. Survival Rule 3. Command status. Without display counter 2, the status scan status is not what you claim, it's what others reveal in response to you. The weak man tries to explain his worth, name drop, or flash achievements. The disciplined man lets context do the talking. Practical tactic: build alliances quietly. A single strong handshake, a calm nod that makes others acknowledge you, carries more weight than a resume recitation. In the first minute, say less and observe more. The man who doesn't rush to prove himself signals that he already occupies the higher ground. Survival Rule 4. Inject uncertainty counter 2, the unpredictability factor. Predictability kills tension. To survive, you must weaponize unpredictability. Practical tactic: break the rhythm in subtle ways. If she jokes, don't immediately laugh. Let the silence stretch, then smile. If she expects a quick answer, tilt your head, study her, and reply later. The goal is not to be difficult, it is to be unreadable. This keeps her invested, because the brain craves patterns but desires the ones it cannot fully solve. Remember, curiosity is stronger than approval. Survival Rule 5. Guard the treasury counter 2, the commitment leak. Your attention is your currency. Men bankrupt themselves in seconds by giving it all away at once. To survive, treat commitment as scarce gold. Practical tactic: ration your signals. Stand upright even when she glances away. Do not chase her mood with your energy. If she tests your attention by pulling back, let her pull. Restrain your investment until attraction is proven, not assumed. This creates scarcity, and scarcity multiplies value. Every ounce of withheld devotion sharpens your power. When these 5 rules combine, you cease being the predictable man who stumbles in the first minute. You become the anomaly, the one who radiates presence without noise, refuses control hooks, commands status without explanation, destabilizes with unpredictability, and guards his treasury of attention. Most men collapse in the opening 60 seconds because they play on her field. They react, they scramble, they give away the game. But the man who follows these rules does not play on her field. He creates his own. And once the battlefield belongs to you, the outcome is no longer chance. It is inevitability. The first 60 seconds are not casual. They are not small talk. They are the hidden battlefield where your entire frame is tested, dissected, and either destroyed or elevated. And here is the brutal truth. Most men lose, not because they are weak, not because they lack potential, but because they walk into the arena unaware that the battle has already started. They think they are simply introducing themselves, while in reality they are bleeding away presence, control, and value in real time. Think of the image again. A clock ticking, each second a blade slicing away at your armor. In 1 minute, everything is decided. The woman does not need hours, days, or weeks to evaluate you. Her biology, sharpened by centuries of survival and selection, takes 60 seconds to decide whether you are a leader or a liability, whether you are a storm or a shadow, whether you stand apart or disappear into the noise of the forgettable. And what happens when you lose those 60 seconds? You spend months trying to repair what was destroyed in a moment. You over-explain, over-invest, over-promise, all in a desperate attempt to climb back into a position you forfeited in the very beginning. It never works. Once the frame is set, it becomes the lens through which she sees you forever. If you entered weak, needy, predictable, that is the story she keeps telling herself about you. You are not fighting her. You are fighting the story she wrote in the first minute. But here lies the forbidden truth. The system is not invincible. The first minute does not have to be your execution ground. It can be your throne. If you anchor your presence, if you break her control hooks, if you command status without noise, if you inject unpredictability, if you guard your treasury of devotion, you flip the script. You stop being the man who is judged. You become the man who does the judging. The battlefield becomes yours, and she is the one left scrambling to measure up. That is why the first 60 seconds matter more than anything else. Not the date, not the relationship, not the months that follow. If you win the first minute, you set the frame. And once the frame is yours, everything else bends to it. This is why most men lose, because they enter blind. But if you enter awake, aware, armed with the survival manual, you are no longer prey. You are the storm in the room, the anomaly that unsettles and captivates. This is what we expose here, the truths no one else will say. The rules that shift the game before it even begins. If this breakdown opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with another man who is still stepping into his first 60 seconds unarmed. Subscribe to this channel because the system never sleeps, and neither should your awareness. Turn on notifications, because every week we strip away another illusion, another silent trap, another weapon used against you. Remember this, the first 60 seconds decide everything, and most men lose. But you don't have to. Awareness is your armor. Discipline is your sword. Presence is your shield. Walk into the arena ready, and the outcome is already decided.